lot of times people like have all this information and they get overloaded with information. I got to learn this, I got to learn that.
Like you said, all you do is back of the napkin math, but that's not easy, right? To just be able to recognize for the normal investor.
And I made a calculation within a minute on my calculator, just a rough number. I said, this is going to cost $500,000 in new roofs. I was like, wow, this guy's really sharp, real hustler, and you inspire me, to be honest with you.
Who are you? What the hell do you do?
Who am I, Dan? That's a great question. Spiritually or just business wise? You know what I
Hey,
mean?
whatever, man. I'm down for whatever. I hate introducing people because, y'all have your own, everybody got their own story, man.
Exactly. So, in terms of real estate, I am the president of SNS Properties Investment. Been in the game for a little bit, like 30 years at least. If you go back, when I was 10 years old, my father bought his first apartment building, 50-unit building with owner financing. So, been in and around the game, legitimately solidly in the game, I would say over 25 years for sure.
And I know when we met up, you had a crazy story about your dad too. Like how I think you had said he came over with like hardly anything and bought this. What's the story behind that? You got to tell. What is that again?
My father was an engineer and he came over around 1970, 71. But he came over, he didn't have any money for even the plane ticket. He had to sell his little scooter that they call in India. You call them like Vespas here in the US. He sold that to get a plane ticket and came in. And he was an engineer. And eventually he got into different businesses. Like first business, like when he got laid off, it was the 7-Eleven business. A lot of Indians are now in the 7-Eleven business. Back then, he was probably one of the first. So that was his first kind of introduction to the business world. He was hesitant to join because it's like my father was never a good businessman. And he saw his father's own failings in business. So he just wasn't sure of himself. But the guy that talked him into doing the business with him, being a partner with him on the 7-Eleven, he got a job and went out to California. So my father did the business by himself. And then my mom took over that business and made him go back into the workforce and work. And they hustled from that to opening a store to laundromats. And then he finally, one day he was visiting a friend and the friend had a triplex. And he was living on the bottom and he had two people paying the rent. And he said to my father, he goes, see, these guys are paying my mortgage. I'm not paying a dime. And that's when the light bulb went on and he started looking at real estate. And he didn't start with single family. He just ended up buying saw an ad in the paper, went out to this property, and the broker walked him through the deal of how he could do it with owner financing. Because back in those days, it was like around 75, 76. It was very hard to get loans. It was really hard to get financing. So the broker explained to him owner financing and what he would have to come up with. So he had to come up with $90,000 and he borrowed it, refied, did what he had to do to come up with that 90,000 for the down.
Yeah.
And then he would pay the owner and the owner would pay the mortgage. And then from there, he got into the system, but he knew nothing about nothing.
I think a lot of people like don't think about that. They're like, oh, I don't have the money. It's like, how can you get the money or how can you structure this deal if it's a good deal and it's gonna work? Like the money's there, the financing there. It's just like
The thing
plan.
with, thing with a guy like him, he had a lot of guts. He had a lot of courage. Because like now, a lot of times people like have all this information and they get overloaded with information. I got to learn this. I got to learn that. That's great to have the information. Don't get me wrong, but so many people have a lot of information and no courage.
Yeah, yeah. You got to pull the trigger. It's either gonna work or it's not. But and you learn as you go. What about you, man? I know that you've been in this game for a long time. You just man, you showed me this awesome apartment complex you just bought. How'd that work out? Like,
So it was interesting because everything we bought up until now, we have about 2,500 units here in Pennsylvania. And so up until now, everything we bought was right in Pennsylvania, something that we could go see it, touch it, manage it ourselves. And this is the first out-of-state deal that we bought. Now, my dream was that we always bought like value add workforce housing. And my dream was like now I wanted to meeting Bobby really changed my mindset too. And I wanted to get into like more of a kind of a newer vintage, newer asset class, something that's built like 2020s or something was my dream more than something that's going to have a little bit more longevity for the next generation. Because started looking, my vision started changing to more of 50 years down the road. Because like my properties, they have a lot of meat in the bones for me. But like, what about the next generation, the generation after that? So started changing my mindset a little bit and a lot, really. The paradigm shift in my mindset. And so that's when I started like envisioning, and I didn't think it would happen within a year. My son found this deal in Indiana, and he started. I have a younger son. He's in New York in real estate and studying real estate at NYU, but he took a semester off right now. He's working with this group that takes billions of dollars to real estate funds and to operators. He's quite sophisticated. He's much more sophisticated than me. I do the back of the napkin kind of math.
yeah.
He's much more sophisticated in terms of underwriting. And so he saw the deal, found it. I went out, looked at it, and we just got into this deal. And it was like a 2022 built, 360 units. Prior to that, we saw another property in Dayton, Ohio, which was really nice. Another one that was like brand new, 2023 built, and somebody beat us out of that deal. And I'm glad they did because this property that we ended up getting was a lot better.
Yeah.
And then the same person who beat us out of that deal, they never closed on that deal. So that broker is now coming to us saying, can you do something here now too as well? Because the guy who was a big talker, whoever came in and got the deal, they were big talkers, but they weren't able to close the deal. They lost their equity or whatever.
Yeah. That deal that you got, is that like A class, B class? What do you think?
I call it luxury workforce housing because it's in an area where the affordability is really good as far as people, but it's brand new. So it's got like the swimming pool, it's got the dog park, it's got you can wash your doggies behind if you want. It's
Yeah.
got all the amenities of an A-class property, brand new to 2022 built. But yeah, so it's definitely A-class in terms of the vintage and all that and the amenities. But in terms of maybe the demographics, I would say B,
Yeah. You
you
know,
know.
what I'm really interested in, because you've been doing this so long and you put it off a little bit, like you said, all you do is back of the napkin math, but that's not easy, right? To just be able to recognize for the normal investor, right? So, other people might need to be sophisticated and have the programs and stuff, what works and what doesn't. What kind of rules of thumb do you use? Like when you analyze this deal, they bring it to you, like, hey, 300 something units, what are you doing?
That was much more sophisticated. My son, he created the performance and everything. And but like another deal I closed in last year right here in Pennsylvania, I walked it and in a matter of minutes I closed the deal with the broker. You know what I mean? Just by having experienced certain things. Like I could look at the property, had 230 apartments, and I was like, the roofs. This place needs all new roofs. And I made a calculation within a minute on my calculator, just a rough number. I said, this is going to cost $500,000 in new roofs, right? So I was able to drop the price at $500,000. Then I had my roofer, a friend of mine, do actually the satellite imagery of the roofs and stuff and come up with a figure. It was like same figure. I
Yeah.
was off by $1,000 and a half, $500,000. So you learn certain things from experience of working and doing things. You just know an idea of what things are going to cost just off the fly sometimes. And being in that market and seeing what the costs were for properties that we had in that area, what it cost to fix up, I was able to do a real rough calculation and I was pretty spot on.
Yeah. Are you able to do a quick percent rule on what they're bringing in rents per what they're, I guess, asking, like right off the bat? Like these people are crazy.
My father's really loves that formula of looking at the rent roll. He doesn't look too much at the expenses and things because people can lie on the NOIs and stuff like that. That can always be manipulated, right? But one thing is very hard to rely on is the actual rent roll and the actual what's the gross potential rent of this property? Where's the market at? So that looking at that income, then you can have certain percentages. If it's depending on the asset class, 40%
Yeah.
is a good income expense ratio. And the higher in the better things with the newer vintages, like you have a greater profit percentage ratio. I'm seeing compared to like some of the older assets because the older assets require a lot of fix up, a lot of maintenance, a lot of capex. You're constantly putting money back into these older properties.
I got a buddy. He's got a couple thousand units nearby you. I think I was telling you about him. I got to introduce y'all. It's so weird. But anyway, he was telling me all this stuff C class, just like you're saying. He's like, bro, I got to get to like B or A because the expenses are starting to, there's a lot of meat on the bone, like you said, and there's cash flow, but damn, it's starting to add up,
Yeah,
you
and you
know?
have to, especially when the property gets 50 years old, you're going to have pipes busting, you're going to have all kinds of stuff happening, and you're just going to be like, you're just going to have to be able to respond and react to a lot of situations all the time. And I'm used to it. For somebody coming in or somebody who's just new, it could be like,
Yeah, dude. Like I was talking, so I was evaluating a mobile home park. I was gonna buy it last week. Me and this guy have been going back and forth forever. And I'm telling you this story because we were talking about like quick rolls and being able to see this or that. And all I do is ask for the rent roll, right? At first. Because like you said, people just fit. And the dude's, it's a small park. It's like 100 and something units. But I'm making whatever, 26,000 a month right now. And I'm like, okay, my quick math is I just multiply it by 12 divided by 2, and I want that area in a 10 cap if it's a park. And I'm like, okay, this number works tentatively until we dive in. And
right.
the guy sends me his rent roll and it's 22,000. And I'm like, bro, you said it was 26,000. And we bill back utilities. I'm like, get the hell out of here. You trying to get paid on $4,000 a month in utilities?
That's the thing with this industry. You have to verify everything. You know, that's really got to be good at obviously doing the top of the back of the napkin, but then you got to go in there and verify. That's what the due diligence period is for.
Yeah, man. What do you got your eyes on right now? What are y'all thinking? Are you just gonna stabilize this one you have and like cash flow the hell out of it? Or y'all still looking?
No, I actually sent a LOI yesterday on a 180 unit in the area. It's something that's built in the 2000s, mostly 3 bedrooms. So I have a call actually later today to discuss it. I think they went over the call for offers with the owner today. So we'll
Is
see
it?
what happens. But yeah, my plan was to like peel back after I did these 2 deals. It was $90 million in acquisition in the last few months. My plan was to like just chill back and just focus on operations and but I have a little bit of capital and I'm able to, and right now deals are coming. I think things are going to change in the economy at some point. So like this, if this is the window to buy something,
Yeah.
I don't know how things are going to be 6 months from now. It might be like expenses might just come back up, you know what I mean, roaring again, screaming like they were. So this might be like the window. This has been the window for me that I see. I was been focusing on targeting this last year up until now because a lot of people are just not able to get the financing and things of that nature. So it like removes players off the chessboard. So there's not as much competition to get a deal because back in a few years ago, like you go see a property, you got 10 people, they're just bidding up the property, right?
Yep. Yep.
Now it's just like you and maybe somebody else, maybe that are really solid players. So you've got an advantage right now.
Yeah. I know when you're going to finance these things, and I know it's all tentative because you do your like your percentage down to what cash flow is going to be and all that stuff. But typically, how much do you like to finance percentage wise of these properties?
Nowadays it's shifted. So you got to get like you have to have 35% down, basically.
Yeah, make it work.
Yeah, that's you're going to get 65% LTV on agency loans pretty much.
Yeah,
Some 70, some people are saying 75, some certain areas, depending on the tier. 5% is a good low leverage, you know what I mean? You're not over leveraged and you have that little bit of cushion, but you got to come in with the equity. And so that's where it removes people off
yeah,
there's not a lot of people who can come up with the equity. And so one of the things that kind of we don't have, we're not raising money, so we don't have huge funds that we can just write checks from, right?
yeah.
So we have our own equity, so we're a little bit more cautious with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Bobby was telling me he got in a bind years back and early on, I guess, when he got in that game because he was over leveraging everything like 90%. People even give him 100 because the deal looked good right off the bat. And he said he learned like he never did 70, anything over 70 again. And I always remembered that when he told me that.
Yeah. If you can get 70, that's I think 70 is really ideal. It's good.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Even 75 is cool.
Yeah,
You know, it's not as easy these days. It hasn't been. It used to be 75 all day, every day.
yeah.
Right now it's not as easy.
Are you, I guess you just lean on brokers, right? You just have broker relationships to find
Yeah.
deals.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really a social capital and building the relationships with brokers. My son, like the one who's in New York, he's really been very proactive in meeting and talking to brokers out in the Midwest, new brokers. We've been very familiar with brokers here in Pennsylvania to make that introduction. And the brokers in the Midwest are much more forthcoming with information. It's a different ball game out there. So it's really good sometimes to go to a different area and to see because your area Pennsylvania's become quite competitive, quite saturated. Prices have become very high. Like this, just to give you an example, like we bought this 360 unit, right? We got it for like 183,000 a unit.
Yeah.
That's unheard of in Pennsylvania. They're charging 150 to 170 for old stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
dude. Brokers sell the dream, right? Like, but like you said, in different areas.
they're doing a lot of direct to seller,
Yeah.
correct?
Yep.
That's the hustle right there. That's the game. I got a young guy, man. He's got, I don't know, 1,000 units now, I think. He's in his 20s or late 20s, and he does most of his stuff is straight to direct to owner and by family.
Yeah, I like direct to seller. I just haven't had, but I haven't given it the opportunity, the chance either. Because I know there's a lot of very good brokers out there, but you get turned off by some that are just like, oh, this is a great deal. And you're like, dude, get the hell out of here. But I know there's great ones out there too. It's like any industry. You have that small percentage of really good operators or brokers or whatever.
They gotta they have to create enough cushion so that they get paid too. You know what I mean? When you get direct to seller, you're eliminating the middleman. You got less sophistication, less you got some bunch of advantages.
Do you have any good? You have any good wholesalers ever bringing you these kind of deals out where you're at?
No, I've never seen a multifamily wholesaler.
Yeah, they don't understand it. That's
I've seen
funny.
people try to do it or talk it, or but I don't know.
Man, I appreciate the hell out of you coming on. I told you I'd get you in and out of here. I know you're a busy dude. Where can people find you if they want to watch your content and stuff like that?
I was real busy when we first met. I'm just focused on closing the deal, but that closed at the end of January. So I've had a little bit of time right now. So it's great. I have a YouTube channel that I haven't been very active with, but it's got a lot of our early real estate stuff on there. It's called Sharma's Karma on YouTube. And
Okay.
my last name is Sharma. And on Instagram, I have embodying underscore spirit. Embodying spirit is my Instagram thing where people can connect with me there as well.
Awesome, man. Super stoked to have you on. Thanks for dropping the nuggets, and man, keep crushing it. You're inspiring, bro.
Bro, I was so inspired when I met you. I said, I haven't met nobody like Travis. I said, Travis is one of a kind. Just in a few minutes of conversing with you, I was like, wow, this guy is really sharp, really real hustler, and you inspire me, to be honest with you.
Thank you, brother. That means a ton. And I can't wait till we get to meet up again and keep kicking ass, dude.